Hi, second graders. I wanted you to see these lovely flowers that were delivered to me yesterday. And I also wanted to thank you and your families for these flowers. Very, very thoughtful and kind of you. I have them sitting here on my dining room table. Thank you. I also wanted to show you book number 4, Wayside School Beneath the Cloud of Doom. All right. On the back side, there's no back blurb, but sometimes that happens when books have book jackets, and sometimes they're on the inside cover. So if you ever see a book and it doesn't have a back blurb, don't worry, there's a chance that it's on the inside cover of the book jacket. So I'll read it to you. Welcome back to Wayside School. Your favorite students and teachers have been waiting for you. That includes Shari, who loves her striped and spotted umbrella more than anything, Kathy, who has a bad case of apoptosis, Jason, who has to read the longest book in the world, and the rest in Mrs. Jewell's class on the 30th story, who are busily collecting toenail clippings. Eek. They all need to prepare for the ultimate test, despite the cloud of doom looming above them. More than 9 million readers have laughed at the clever and hilarious stories of Wayside School, but they've never seen these stories before. So what are you waiting for? That's a catchy blurb to get us interested in the story, huh? All right. I'll show you I'm going to take that off for a moment. It's probably going to cause me a little bit more. I just want you to see what the book includes. Title page. Here's his dedication page for Ruth. The table of contents. Can you predict how many chapters are in this story? Did you say 30? Nice work. 30, right here. And there's also a note from the author that I want to read to you. This is the 4th book about Wayside School. I wrote the first one, Sideways Stories from Wayside School, more than 40 years ago. I'm a lot older now, but in my heart, I'm still Louis, the yard teacher, passing out the balls and playing with the kids at recess. To fully enjoy this book, you should read the other 3 first, wait 40 years, and then read this one. Or you could just read it now. Do you want to wait 40 years? I didn't think so. So I also want to show you, there's a picture of Louis. Here we go. There's a picture of Louis. This is the Beneath the Cloud of Doom. So here he is currently. And then in our other book 3, there's another, oh goodness. There's another picture. That was him 40 years ago. So from the looks of it, it looks like maybe he just changed his hair color a little bit. Sometimes adults do that as they get older. They like to change things up and change their hair color. So maybe that's what Louis was doing. All right, let's do it. Chapter 1, The Bells of Wayside. It is very important that the children at Wayside School know the bell system. The first bell in the morning sounded like this. Whoop, 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 whoop. When they hear it, they know they have 16 minutes to get to class. That's not too difficult for those in Mr. Hardgrove's class on the third floor. But Wayside School is a 30-story building with 1 room on each floor. So for those who happen to be in Mrs. Jewell's class, way up on the 30th floor, they must be ready on the first. Whoop! Todd was in Mrs. Jewell's class. He was stuck behind a mass of kids outside the building, waiting for the doors to open. He jumped up and down, trying to see over the heads of those in front of him. If he was late, Mrs. Jewell's would put his name on the blackboard under the word discipline. The kids who went to class on the lower floors often dilly-dallied. If Todd got stuck behind a large group of dilly-dalliers, he'd have no chance. Inside the principal's office, Mr. Kidswatter sat behind his enormous desk as he watched the clock. At the moment the second hand reached the number 12, he shrieked into his microphone, "Whoop, whoop, 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 whoop." So Mr. Kidswatter's making the bell sounds? It's kind of cool. The doors unlocked and the children stampeded into the building and up the stairs. Todd tried his best to weave his way to the front, but there wasn't a lot of room. 8 minutes later, Mr. Kidswatter tugged on the rope, hanging through the hole in the ceiling, and the second bell rang. Clang, 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 clang. Clang, 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 clang. Todd counted the clangs. 8. That meant he now had 8 minutes to get to class. 7 or 9 clangs would have meant something completely different. 7 meant a helicopter was landing on the roof. Okay. 9 clangs meant a porcupine had entered the building. So far, he had only made it to the 7th floor, but he had finally managed to weave his way past all the dilly-dalliers. There was nothing to slow him down now. When he reached the 18th floor, he heard this sound. Ching-a-ling, ching-a-ling, ching-a-ling. Nothing to worry about there. That just meant they were out of donuts in the teacher's lounge. The scary bell was the late bell. It didn't matter where he was. It always sounded like an angry driver was slamming on a car horn right behind him. It made Todd jump every time. He quickly dashed from the 18th to the 20th floor. There was no 19th floor. His legs were sore, and he was breathing hard as he reached the top. Just ahead, he could see Joy entering the classroom. "Don't shut the—" Todd shouted. Joy shut the door behind her. "Guzak!" said Todd. He was just opening it when the horn blared as if it were right behind him. "You're late, Todd," said Mrs. Jules. Said Mrs. Jules as he entered the classroom. "Right you're—" "I know," he said. He wrote his name on the blackboard under the word discipline. Other bells rang throughout the day. At noon, the lunch bell kaboinked 3 times. 3 kaboinks meant macaroons and cheese. The bell for recess was just a single ding, but nobody ever missed it. At the end of the day, Mr. Kidswatter would bang a giant gong with a large iron mallet. It was his favorite thing about being a principal. Todd sat at his desk, glumly looking at the blackboard. The day had started off badly for him and had only gotten worse. There was now a check mark next to his name, under the word discipline. Next to that, Mrs. Jules kept adding new homework assignments. Read a book, write a book report, draw a picture. Don't forget your paperclip. History. Read pages 55 to 59 and answer questions on pages 61 and 62. Math worksheet. Do odd and even numbered problems. Science. Read pages 29 to 34 and do experiment on page 37. Todd had a sick feeling in his stomach, and it wasn't just the mac and cheese. In big letters across the top of the blackboard, Mrs. Jules had written, "Ultimate test starts tomorrow." Mrs. Jules had been warning the class about the ultimate test all year. The test would last for 3 days. If he failed, Todd would be sent back to kindergarten. And then he heard it, the most magical bell of all. Ping pong! This bell had only rung once in the history of Wayside School, and nobody knew who rang it, but everyone knew what it meant. All around, kids began cheering and clapping their hands. Shouts of joy could be heard coming from every floor of Wayside School. Todd just sat there in stunned disbelief. Can you pretend you're in just disbelief? Like, oh my goodness. It rang again. Ping pong! It was the erase the blackboard bell. Mrs. Jules had no choice. She picked up the eraser. Up and down Wayside School, teachers were doing the same thing. Todd smiled as the homework assignments were wiped away. The ultimate test was canceled. His name was removed from the discipline list, and even the word discipline soon disappeared. Deep in the basement, a man with a black mustache snapped open a black attaché case. Another man, also with a black mustache, placed a small silver ball in the case. A third man, who was bald, put in a solid gold ping-pong paddle. So what do you think? How cool would that be to have that bell system? Lots to remember, though. Could be tricky.